So the situation is the server up here is serving and volleying, and you are up at the net. So a little bit of a ninja time to poach. Like, people typically think of poaching when it's their team serving, but if you can poach when your opponent's team is serving, that's like a huge unlock for your ability to win in doubles. So player up here, your opponent is serving, you are up at the net. So opponent hits a serve and they are coming forward, and what you're looking for, so your partner is going to hit a good return in this situation, and they'd be standing over there, but your partner hits a good return. Now, you don't want to be looking back to see what your partner is up to. So what you're going to look for is the server, and you're going to look, you're looking for body language here. And if they drop the racket head down, or if they bend their knees to handle a low ball, that's like the cue, right? When their racket drops below their waist or they bend down, your partner is giving them a low ball. You don't even need to see the ball. The ball could still be crossing the net, somewhere here, and you're just using your body language to anticipate what kind of shot your partner has hit. This is a situation where you're just going to move to the net strap, because tough low volleys, typically these guys are going to hit them cross court and try and defend and get it back to your partner. So this is a great time for you to move. The ball is probably going to be high. It's going to be rising, so you can hit down. And in the deuce court here, this is going to be on your forehand volley, probably the stronger volley. So if you just see that body language cue, the racket drops down below the waist, that's an instant signal for you to poach. Now, sometimes you might be in the reverse situation. So let's now say that you guys are serving, right? And this is you now. So you are serving, your partner's up at the net here. Let's say you serve, you're coming to net, and your opponent hits a tough low volley for you. Now, if this person is super passive, then whatever, you don't have to worry about it, but you start playing high-level doubles, these guys and gals are going to be really good about reading your body language and poaching. So what you can do here, one of the shots I like to hit is, and this is a higher level one, this is tough, but if it's a half volley, particularly if the return comes over here, a wider return. So this person's trying to be aggressive, they're moving this way. If you can hit a half volley, like quasi lob, it doesn't, if they get a racket on it, it's not the end of the world, but you're basically just trying to get it high so that if this person is a righty, they're moving to the middle of the poach, they have to stop, and then it's a high backhand, and they're probably not going to be able to do much with that. So the typical sort of inclination is to keep these balls lower and try and stick them, but that can actually make the volley easier, and it's just a tough ball to hit, right, if you're dealing with a half volley. So if you put a little air on that, that can actually be a really, really effective shot to try. So your partner, your wife in this case, is serving in the ad court, and so the body language cue from the returner for when they're going to pull this thing down the line is if they slide to this way, from our perspective to the right, to set up a forehand, that's a ball that you can that the returner can really pull down the line. So whenever you see somebody slide like that, it could just be a one-up, one-back baseline rally as well. You see that move to slide over, then this ball, the downline pass, could be incoming. So one thing you can actually do, if you see that body language cue, as they move this way to hit a forehand, you would actually fake like you're going to poach. So you're kind of moving in opposite directions, but then right before they're about to hit, you come back, and then they see this big hole. They're like, okay, I'm going to go for this, and then you come back and you shut that down, and you can just stick the volley through the hole there. And then the other thing you can do, and this was a poaching tip I learned from Martina Navratilova. This is like her all-time favorite time to poach, is if you see the body language where instead of moving this way, now they move towards the middle of the court to get out of the way of the ball and hit a backhand like this. they're almost guaranteed to pull this cross court. So if you see that body language tell, then you would 100% poach on that, and that's an easy volley for you, where you just stick this thing over there, or at the net player's feet. But the previous one, that's when you can easily get burned, and then the one I just showed you, that's definitely a green light for you to poach. So they hit the return, and then I'm not sure like the quality of your partner's ground strokes, but if your partner has like decent ground strokes, then I would just poach off of like a solid shot that they hit, because the serve, especially a weak serve, is a short ball, right? It has to land obviously in the service box, so this is a short ball, but the ensuing ground stroke is not. So just wait for the ensuing ground stroke, and then maybe that's when you commit, right? If it's anything deep, if it's got some pace on it, then that is when you commit. One of the body language things you can look for the opponent is if they're not able to step into it. Maybe they're moving to the side to set up, but as long as they're not stepping forward and they've more just slid out of the way to hit it, that can be a good time to go, because they're not going to be stepping in and ripping the ball. So you'll probably have a ball that is easier for you to poach on. So the name of the game with a partner who doesn't have a great serve is to just delay the approach for the rally. I would still go earlier in the rally. Like, I would try and poach off of their first ground stroke, just because the rallies tend to be a little bit more predictable earlier in the point. But I wouldn't just back up, because you're giving away a huge advantage here. You're taking all the pressure. You don't want to play two back on the serve unless it's like some kind of doomsday scenario. You're taking all the pressure off the returner then. They can roll it back at you. They can hit a singles return when you're both back. They can block it, loft it. There's just zero pressure on this person. And you're just giving them the opportunity to hit a return and then come to net. And now they've got the force field up here, and you guys are playing two back. You're basically each individually, you're both playing singles. Your partner's playing singles in the deuce court. You're playing singles in the ad court. They're playing as a team up at the net. You don't want to facilitate your opponents getting into this formation. So I would still hang out up at the net. Don't give up that position, and fake early, and then look for ground strokes to poach off of. So you are serving, and you've got a weak serve. It's tough for you to get to the net, and so you can use like the serve and delayed approach technique. But serving from the normal position, if your partner's got a good forehand, a lot of times they're going to slide around and hit their stronger forehand. Because you don't have the biggest serve on the planet, they'll be able to move around a lot of this stuff. And then if they hit a good return, that's obviously going to be more difficult for you to hit an approach shot off of that. So one of the things you can do is, and this is, you can stand towards the tee here. And there's a great coach named Jorge Capistani. He has a really good piece of advice where he basically says that at the club level, you'll get players that have like a 4-0 forehand return and a 3-5 backhand return. And so when you see that your opponent has a significantly weaker backhand in this case, you want to do everything you can to get it over there. It doesn't matter if you're being obvious about it. Rafael Nadal, one of the most obvious strategies, obvious like play styles, he's just going to bludgeon you to death with his forehand, lefty forehand, cross court at your backhand. Doesn't matter if you know it's coming, you can't stop it. So in this situation, you can serve right by the tee here and just target everything at the weaker backhand there. And you're not going to follow this to net, but what you're going to do by putting it over here is hopefully you get a return somewhere in there. It's a little bit short. And now, and this is assuming you've got a stronger forehand, most of these returns here are going to be on your forehand, which will allow you to step forward. Then you can rip an approach shot, and you can, if you hit a good deep approach shot somewhere in here, good deep ball, you just follow that to the net. And it allows you to mitigate your weaker serve and then skip all the tough low volleys that you would have to be hitting. So last night I was playing doubles and I was serving. I'm a lefty, and so what I like to do is hit, lefty sliders out wide at a righty's backhand. Puts me in a pretty good spot when I'm coming to the net. I get a lot of high volleys, and we're in the driver's seat in those points. Now, that doesn't mean that these guys, the returner, doesn't get a bead on the serve and starts to groove over the course of the match. So what I like to do is start moving my position along the baseline, because not only does it create a different angle for the serve, it's a different look, it also just gives them something to think about. You're like, oh, Will's standing in a different spot. And if I'm going to stand here, where do you think that serve is going? Obviously, you would think, okay, now Will is going to try and go tee. And I might. But often what I like to do is stand there and then just hit the wide serve again, because it's the serve they're least expecting. So last night, a couple times, I would stand there, my opponent is expecting the tee serve, and you would literally get them like, they come up, they hit their split step, and they're splitting to the middle of the court to defend the tee serve, and then they have to change direction and reach, and then that's a weak, you're splitting this way, and then you're like, uh-oh, and then you got to reach for that return. That's setting my partner up to poach a ton. So this is actually a great way to set your partner up to poach. If you move around, it'll really kind of, again, changes what they're looking at, gives them something to think about, will create a lot of weak returns that the partner can then poach on. Specifically, especially in the, this is good in the ad court where you got the backhand volley in the middle, so it's not necessarily as strong, so you're taking a little bit of pressure off of your partner. So if your opponent is standing inside the baseline to return your serve, well, this is a wireframe of Carlos Alcaraz's serve, and this is a wireframe of a club player named Dan. Now, they are in the racket drop in this wireframe, and then in the next one, this is Alcaraz at contact, and this is Dan at contact. So Dan has a really big break in his kinetic chain, and that is costing him a ton of power. And this coming Thursday, December 4th at 2 p.m., I'm doing a live training where we're going to walk through what you're looking at here. And at the end of the live training, we're going to show you how to swing the racket a lot faster, generate way more racket head speed by fixing the biggest mistakes I'm seeing in the kinetic chain. And this is the biggest mistake, the racket drop right here to contact. There's a big mistake going on right here. I'm going to show you what it is during this live training. And if you want more power, you won't want to miss it. So click the link and sign up. It's free. It's free. All you got to do is click the link, sign up, and you will be good to go. And I will see you at 2 p.m. on Thursday.